Every child has a right not to be inappropriately touched by an adult, whether it's a family member, uncle, aunt, stepfather, all the way down the line. There's just no excuse for that kind of behavior. Those cases for me they hit me very close to home. I have 4 children of my own, so being able to represent a child in a situation like that when their innocence is treaded upon or encroached upon by an adult who usually occupies a position of trust to them, it's just horrendous. And they're cases that I really enjoy working on because I feel like I can really make a difference. A child sex abuse case is a case where a child has been sexually abused by an adult. That sexual abuse can range from an inappropriate touching to a full-on rape, if you will, without being too graphic. We've handled cases that run the gamut. Usually in sex abuse cases there is a criminal element to it. We don't handle the criminal side. Our business is really only on the civil side, so we help our clients get compensation for the injuries that have been caused by these adults. Normally the abusers are handled separately by the criminal justice system. A lot of times when we get involved in cases, they've already been convicted or pled guilty and they're already serving time in jail. Most of the cases where we're successful in recovering money for our clients normally come from institutions that were supposed to be supervising or background checking those people. Examples might be the public schools or maybe a church daycare program or something like that. In those instances, those institutions owe every child that's involved in them 2 duties. One is a duty to properly background check all of the adults that are working in that particular institution, and secondly is a duty to supervise. And in almost all the cases where we're successful in making financial recoveries for our clients, the institution has fallen down in one or both, usually both of those areas. They've not properly background checked the person and found out that he's done it to other children before, or they're just not supervising, in other words, letting him take children off by themselves and do whatever they do. Every time we handle a child sex abuse case, you have to take into account what the child's already been through. And you have to weigh that against what it's going to take to get a successful result for them in a civil case, or even in a criminal case. The police or the state attorney's office should also be thinking about that. Sometimes you consult with the parents, you meet the child, and sometimes you have to make a decision, is it worthwhile to go forward? And we've had those meetings and we've decided that with certain kids, it's not worth putting the child through this. In other instances, we meet with the parents and the child, and there's a certain level of resolve, and you hear about what happened, and you just feel like you have to make something happen for them, and you go forward. Luckily, there are things about the system that help us protect the child. For instance, we can bring a lawsuit anonymously. We can bring it in the name of their initials. We can bring it in the parent's name and the initials of the parent's name. There are protections for children and the kinds of questions they can be asked and the kind of settings that they can be asked in once a lawsuit starts. So there are some protections for kids, but you still have to make that original assessment along with the family very early in the process, because sometimes it would be too traumatic for the child to go through the same victimization twice. If a person has a question about whether their case falls within the statute of limitations, they probably should contact a lawyer who specializes in those cases that can evaluate the case and tell them whether they have a valid case or not. In Florida now, the Florida legislature 2 summers ago abolished the statute of limitations on child sex abuse cases. It means that whenever they feel comfortable, they can come forward and they'll have a valid case against their abuser or against an institution that aided and abetted the abuser. But it doesn't change the statute of limitations as it applied to kids who were abused before 2 summers ago. Basically, that means the old rules apply, which is generally a 4-year statute of limitations, sometimes extended to 7. But that's also very loose because there's extenuating circumstances that various courts throughout Florida have recognized. So it still might be worth looking into from a criminal perspective, because the criminal system works very differently than the civil side that we work on. So even if a person was abused years ago, it probably would not be a bad idea for them to go ahead and report it to the police, get that person's name on a list, and then maybe they can follow through with criminal charges and maybe not, but at least there'll be some record about the abuser being accused of it. If you wanted to call and ask questions about a child sex abuse case and you felt uncomfortable about telling me your name or the name of your child, that's perfectly fine. We can answer all of the procedural questions and all of the legal questions that you have without even knowing what your name is. So it never costs a penny to call us and talk to us about any kind of injury case, whether it's a car accident case, boat accident, theme park case, child sex abuse case. Every consultation with us is free, whether it's in our office or over the telephone.